Hello and welcome to the Content Byte, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Australian writers and other creatives.
And I'm Lynne. I'm a journalist and content writer as well. Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we bring you all kinds of tips, tricks and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business.
You know, feast or famine cycle hits harder without visibility over your finances. And that's why we love Rounded. It's an accounting system that reveals income sources, profitable clients and projects, and it helps you even anticipate quiet periods, doesn't it?
It does. It's great. And I know that because I've been doing this for quite a few years, like 10 years now, I have some real peaks and troughs over the years. And I think having that visibility into my finances really helps me, A, not get stressed, and B, manage that cash flow. I think it's really good.
Yeah, you can claim all the right costs and expenses with Rounders Expense Tracker, and some users have saved thousands through their tax returns. So it's really a total game changer for your money management.
True. Particularly, it's been a tough couple of years with this whole cost of living crisis. And I really like the fact you can track the invoices and payment reminders so you don't have to worry about those things. Like Rounded looks after it all for you.
It definitely does. And it frees up hours for you to either find more clients and earn more or maintain a better work-life balance.
We're all about that.
We are. And if you're a Rachel's List member, you get 20% off the annual Rounded subscription. So check out the show notes for more about that.
Fantastic. Hey, Rach.
Hey.
This week we're discussing a topic that it's always a big one in the freelancing world. It's all about niching.
Yes, and especially we're talking about niching, like going really deep into a niche, which, it's interesting because I kind of consider myself a generalist, but I've started to niche in what I actually do. So that's a way to niche as well. But today's guest is very strategic about her niche and it seems to work well for her. So I'm looking forward to chatting to her.
Yes, it's Nikita Morell. And Nikita works with architects on their content, and it's a specialisation that's really served her well. Why don't you tell us a bit about Nikita before we start our conversation?
Sure. So Nikita Morell is a copywriting and messaging strategist who works exclusively with architects. Specialising in websites, Nikita helps solo practitioners as well as small and emerging architectural practices with their positioning, brand messaging strategy and copywriting. And she's the founder of Architects Workshop, which includes comprehensive masterclasses to help architects leverage ChatGPT and step-by-step toolkits to help them write their About Me pages, project descriptions and more. Welcome, Nikita. Great to have you.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah. Look, it's so interesting that you only work with architects and architectural firms. And I know a little bit about the backstory, but tell our audience what inspired you to make that your specialisation.
Sure. So, I started kind of back in the day in big brand marketing with L'Oreal and firms like that. And then I moved into architecture publishing. So that was really interesting to see it from like the media point of view. And then from there, I went in-house to an architecture firm. And in that, it's quite a large architecture firm in Australia. And in that firm, I started their comms and marketing department. And I was kind of just sitting there and I thought, I could be doing what I'm doing for them, increasing their brand awareness and things like that for a lot more other firms. So I just took a bit of a risk and I did the jump and I just started my own business. So this was back in 2016 now. So I've been, like 9 years running my own business, writing and copywriting for architects.
Oh, wow. So was that always your focus or do you do other things or has it evolved and got more and more specialised over the years?
Yeah, definitely, Lynn. So when I say, it started with architects, I've always kind of serviced architects, but in the beginning, I was definitely a lot broader. So I did almost like creatives. So I did textile companies, I did artists, interior designers, the whole lot. But yeah, as time has gone on, I just feel like I'm getting more and more laser focused, which is, it's really interesting. And I guess my level of knowledge is getting deeper and deeper in the kind of architecture world as well.
Yeah.
Wow. So does that mean if you get someone who's not in that architectural world or even just slightly aligned with that world, will you say no? Are you at that point?
Look, I'll let you in on a little secret. Although outwardly, I definitely say that I am exclusively for architects. In the last few years, if the right firm comes along and I feel like there's a good fit, then I have serviced them. So, for example, I just recently did a facade specialist company that wanted a really out there brand voice. So sometimes, Archie adjacent software companies and that I will take on a project every now and then.
Yeah, fair enough.
Interesting. So tell us a bit about Architects Workshop. So how did you found that and how do architects learn from it?
Yeah, so I found that a lot of architects wanted to hire me for my services, but just didn't have the budget. So a lot of them were emerging or they'd come straight out of university and they just, didn't have the marketing budget to hire a specialist. So that's kind of where the idea came from, is I thought, well, how can I make it more accessible? So I created the Architects Workshop, and originally it was just like interactive PDFs, and I had like an about page, blueprint, one about biographies, one about blogs, awards submissions, and they took me a long time to put together, but it was just a document that they could kind of take and just DIY it themselves. So that's where the idea came from. But since then, it's definitely evolved.
Yeah, you do workshops and things like that too.
Yeah, so now I've got the toolkits, but I've also got masterclasses. So I recently did one on how architects can use ChatGPT to write project descriptions. But the difference is those masterclasses, like that ChatGPT one, took me more than, I guess, 9 months to put together. And I had architects test it before it went live. I had an AI specialist come in and look at it to make sure that I had everything, in place. And, I'm not an AI specialist in any means, so I wanted to make sure that all the gaps were filled. But yeah, it's got masterclasses, toolkits. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it at the moment, but definitely, room to expand.
So do they pay like one fee for access to the whole workshop, or do they cherry pick what they want to buy like that?
Yeah, exactly. They just cherry pick. So sometimes certain things work in bundles. Like I've got a Chat GPT 101 that worked perfectly with the project descriptions. I've also got one on a masterclass on how to write testimonials, but not only how to write them, but how to ask for them. And it's full of like everything I do is I try and make it as actionable as possible. And I try and give architects everything they need because, as we all know, they're very busy people. So I give them just cut and copy draft emails that they can put into an email and ask their clients to get a testimonial with the right questions and that as well.
So interesting. One of the things I love about you, and we've talked about this sort of off air, is that you get quite opinionated on LinkedIn, which I think is really fun. And we're connected, and I know from your newsletter that you've had some blowback from architects. Do you think, is the LinkedIn style and the topics you do, is that strategic, designed to get cut through and attention? And particularly because, well, we love architects, but they can be on the egotistical sort of opinionated side themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I'll be really honest, like it never was in like I never intentionally go out there to be provocative and to take architects offside. Usually I think also sometimes it's just how I am as a person. I can be correct and I can just say things that I'm, later going, oh gosh, like maybe I shouldn't have said that. But I think the thing for me is it's not like I spend hours and hours on each LinkedIn post. I write a LinkedIn post every day and I don't often have the time, to schedule them ahead of time. So it's just really me jumping on LinkedIn and very candidly just having something that's at the forefront of my mind. So for example, one that's gotten a lot of blowback is that I often talk about how architects love to talk about the passion and the craft of architecture, but at the expense of not looking after their businesses and treating it like a business. So it's kind of like, well, money and marketing and like profit are all dirty words in the architecture world. You should be talking about how you're helping the community and the built environment and all this. But look, at the end of the day, they are running businesses. And so there are topics like that, which I feel that, maybe might come across as quite abrasive and direct, but it's not intentionally meant to be like that.
Do you remember any particular posts that really, ruffled feathers?
Yeah, look, there's been a lot. I mean, and interestingly, sometimes it's not even about copywriting or marketing or anything. Like I had a post where my photographer, like my personal brand photographer, took a picture of me leaning back in a chair with my arms up. And that ruffled a lot of feathers. Architects, kind of shot at me and said, well, you should be standing there with your arms crossed, looking at the camera. This is not very professional. And And I just
Classic architecture
I love
stance.
how they tell you how your brand marketing is
Yeah.
supposed to look.
well, but and this is I'm on a huge mission, and this is probably one of the biggest things of my business is what I want to change and bring about in the architecture industries. I want to show architects that you can have personality and be professional at the same time. Professionalism, like what is it? It's like a whole spectrum. So I try and say to architects, you can have a bit of humor and wit in your copy, and it's not going to, take away from that professional quote unquote kind of look and feel. So yeah.
How interesting. Well, talk to us about your newsletter. I'm a subscriber, and I think it's a bit of a masterclass in storytelling because you sort of take an anecdote or a story and then you wrap it back around to, your audience. So just unpack that for us, like how you come up with your stories and how that storytelling style works as opposed to other styles of email marketing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I love writing my newsletter. I think that's just, some people avoid it, but I think I've made it into something that I really enjoy doing, and it's one of my favorite parts of running my own business. And I think it really comes down to this quote by Anne Hanley that I once read, and I think it was something along the lines of, focus on the letter part of newsletter. So I really, when I sit down to write a newsletter, it is me just writing a letter to my to my audience. And I do treat it like a one-on-one conversation. So yes, I tell lots of stories about my personal life and, my family and things that have happened and that. And it's interesting, I guess the whole point of these stories is it does create an emotional connection. And last year I was invited to speak at the AIA conference in national conference in Washington, D.C. So I flew over and it was just so interesting. I had random people come up to me and be like, oh, how's your husband Kieran going with the kids at home? And I just looked at them and was like, sorry, I don't know you, but you know my husband's name. And then I realized, they've been following me and following my stories. And I almost approach my newsletter like almost like a sitcom. There's characters. My husband's a character in there, and I'm a character. And I guess the main thing is I want everyone to open that newsletter, read it, and then close it and almost like find out one new thing about me and build that. And I think that builds a lot of trust. And for every newsletter I send out, I get at least like 10 to 15 responses and replies. And look, it's not a huge list. It's a very small list, but I think it's that engagement that I really, really, yeah, feel gratitude towards.
Interesting.
I would love to ask, do you put everyone you work with, do they automatically go onto that newsletter, or is it more of a, drawing in new leads and they have to opt in? How does it work in terms of building your list?
Yeah, you've actually just made me think. I don't think I ever put my clients on there, which
I don't put mine on my newsletter
okay.
either. It's more for new people. So I'm,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So it's more, I've got lots of different lead magnets and I spent a lot of time, like, so for example, last year I launched the Architect's website library and I've got 120 plus examples of real life architecture websites. They're all categorized in about page bios and they're all annotated and it's free. So if an architect's just sitting down and needs inspiration on their, for their about page, they can go on to this library and take a look. So that's one way people get onto my newsletter list. I've got a guide, I studied 663 websites. So I put all my findings in a guide. So I'm always trying to think of new ways and value, that offer value to architects as well.
So interesting. I think, Nikita, one of the things we are like, you've been a journalist and everything, and we're big believers in using those transferable skills into new niches. And you seem to have done that really well. Do you think journalists in particular are skilled but may not realize the other areas they could step into?
Definitely. I mean, and that's the thing is, especially in the design world, but journalism and copywriting, they are very different. And I think, sometimes on the outward surface, you think, oh, it's writing, but it is a very different style of writing. And I think journalists, they've got such good research skills is what I feel like that's a big skill is being able to get down and really uncover certain things. And I think that can definitely be transferred, understanding your audience, who you're writing for. And yeah, a lot of journalists, I think, make for excellent copywriters.
What would be your advice to journalists who want to step into copywriting more? Like, how did you learn your craft and all of that?
Yeah, so I always say, look, it's an art and it's a science. And I think it's a lot about, I've done courses on consumer psychology. I've done, my background was in marketing. So that's, it's marketing, it's consumer, it's sales, it's selling, it's that using the right words to sell. That's the whole point of copywriting, is to elicit an emotional response to get people to take action, whether that's, buying something or calling you or whatever it is. But I think like even just doing a basic copywriting course, I think Belinda Weaver has a really good one, but just starting off, like dipping your toes, just seeing how it is. But I think journalists you already have the writing skill set. So it's just really, I guess, fine tuning the sales kind of angle to it, I guess.
Mm. And how much of your work is writing copy these days and working on the word shop or the masterclasses and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I still do client, like one-on-one client work. So I've just actually introduced like kind of a website design arm of my business too. So I had a lot of architects coming to me, and then I would write all this copy, and then it would never see the light of day because they just didn't know how to upload it, or they were embarrassed about the design of their website. So now, as of last year, I've just become a bit of a one-stop shop. So they come to me, I can do the design and the copywriting, and we can just get it up a lot quicker. So I spend time doing that, but yeah, look, in terms of content, like my LinkedIn content, I don't spend, even though I'm doing it a lot, I don't spend too long on it. I try not to overthink. I try and just kind of put things out there. I think over time, because my time is so limited, I've just realized that something is better than nothing. And I am a bit of a control freak, like we all are, and a bit of a perfectionist, but I've learned, I think, I don't have an option to procrastinate. So, yeah.
You just get it
I
done.
definitely think I've kind of evolved into that done is better than perfect
Mm.
philosophy. I used to be, more
Yeah.
like, agonizing over everything.
I know that architects are like a lot of writers. We speak to a lot of writers and they want to create a website and they keep putting it off. It's surprising how often we have people on the podcast and they say, yeah, I've been working on my website because we want them to put it in the show notes, and they still haven't done it and they've been working on it for 2 years. Do you find architects like that? They plan to do a website, they just don't get to it because it's too hard.
Yeah, this is it. And I think there's so many roadblocks, especially for writers as well as architects, that kind of portfolio piece of like, well, do I put samples of my work up? And then for architects, a lot of it's like, well, it's not photographed, or, I've only got renders and I don't know how to talk about this, or, the client doesn't want me to put their house on my website. What do I do? Like, there's a lot of roadblocks to getting that website, but I have seen some fantastic websites that have just featured one project and told that story of that one project so well. And I think, yeah, it's just, again, putting something up there that doesn't have to be perfect. That's the beauty of websites. It can be, edited over years, and not just trying to do it all yourself. I think that's the other big thing is, I've got a website developer, a designer. You can't sit there tinkering on certain, I don't know. That's just my opinion, is sometimes your time, you don't realize how much that's worth. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Definitely.
just, I want to zero in on what you've just said about how they might not have the visuals, or they might not be able to put a photo up of the house that they've worked on. Like I'm about to work on a site for a builder at the moment, and he's like got no social proof, no like, pictures or anything. I mean, how do you manage that situation? Because obviously as the copywriter, you want your words to see the light of day. But when the rest is slowing it down, how do you manage that?
as in, if I've started to write it and then they're not able to give me the stuff. Yeah, that
Yeah.
happens all the time. So I think it's happening right now. So yeah, so as a copywriter, I've learned to have very strong boundaries as well. And so, for example, after the client signs the contract, I send them a welcome pack. And in that welcome pack is like a one-pager that is like what I expect from you, what you should expect from me. And it just very clearly lines out, even times to get back to emails, like, I'm going to give you 48 hours to respond, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't used to do that, but since I've done it, I think now it just starts the project off on the right feet. So I'm very open. I'm like, if I don't have your images by a certain day, then we're going to put in placeholders, stock images. We will train you on how to upload your own images when you're ready. But the project is essentially finished. Or another thing I've just started to do is a pause clause, where I say, no worries, we're going to pause it, but to restart it, it's going to cost you X amount. And we have to lock in that day. So it's just also helping me and my schedule. So I'm not just waiting and then everything comes at once. And yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, they're great ideas. How did you sort of come to, making those decisions? Was it like things were happening and it was just annoying, and so you'd write it down and go, I'm actually going to put a clause in place for this, or I'm going to, how did you reach a point where you had that welcome pack and had all those clauses in place?
Yeah, I think it's just happened over time, really. It's, yeah, as you said, like it just, something would just keep happening again and again. And look, it's not their fault, things happen when with projects and that. But it was just like, well, how do I'm also running a business, so how do I protect myself from these things, or just so it's not so awkward, because I can say, remember that pause clause, why don't we put it in place? So it's not like surprising them or anything. I think it's good for them and it's good for me as well. It's kind of lets everyone off the hook on the same page.
I deal with architects a lot too, and I find that they're really focused on the visuals. How do you get them excited about the words? Like, because I had an architect the other day who has a beautiful website, and she said it's just not getting found. And I looked at it, amazing visuals, and she only had about 15 words on every page. And I thought, I think that could be a reason. How do you get them? Because they're not word orientated, are they?
No, and that's a lot of what my content really focuses on, is that education around words. So there's a few things. For example, in a lot of my presentations when I'm presenting to architects, I always show them the same image, and it's of this man. He's just kind of like looking out this window, and there's this beautiful timber ceiling, and I have the same image but two different captions. So one of the captions is "She left him," and you just see this man, you're like, oh gosh, like, is he a slave? What's happened? Like, why did she leave? And then the second, same image, but I'll have another caption saying exposed timber beams. And I say to architects, I say, look, I bet you by reading the different words, same picture, it's elicited a different emotional response. One, you're thinking about the man and his story. The other one, your eyes go straight up to that exposed timber ceiling. So I'm trying to educate them that words, they direct your attention when you're looking at a project. They tell you what to look at. They give the project context, and they can tell a story. So I think it's really important. I also tell architects, like, realistically, how many people actually physically experience your work? It's not like you can knock on some random's door and say, hey, do you mind if I just take a look around because I'm thinking about using this architect? You wouldn't do that. So it's about saying, well, if they can't physically enter your spaces and feel them, how can you create that feeling with words? And that's where I teach them, weave in different senses. Don't just rely on what you can see. On your website, like, when you're in that space, what can you hear? What can you smell? Like, what do things feel like? So I think it's that education around that piece as well.
You must have clients that start out really reluctant and think they know it all, and then at the end they're like, oh my God, we love you, Nikita, this is amazing.
No, sometimes not. I wish, but I think, yeah, I mean, look, as you said, and very gently I'll say, there's a lot of egos in the architecture world. So again, it's me filtering out the types of architects I do and don't want to work with as well. But yeah, it's always so lovely to have one that's just embracing, brand voice and yeah, all of that.
Can we touch on that? How do you filter out the pitter? We call them the pitters, the pain in the asses type clients. Do you have, a way of I don't know.
Spotting the red flags.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, what's red flags? I think, to be honest, if you hop onto my website, you'll see very quickly, it's not my personality, I believe, comes out quite quickly on my website when you read the words. So I feel like that immediately is a turn off for a lot of architects. They're like, oh, no, I don't like her vibe. Whereas other ones are like, okay, like, I want to work with her. So I feel like that's a good kind of first impression. And hopefully it filters out. There's a picture of me doing the splits on my website. It's hidden, but it's there. So I mean, a lot of architects are like, oh no, like too. So yeah, and then I attract some really, really great clients, which I'm always happy about too. Yeah.
Do you think niching down as you've done has brought you more business and allowed you to charge a premium for your services?
Yes, definitely. And I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever got when I was like a younger copywriter was try and be the only copywriter in the room. And I feel like by going to these big architecture conferences in America and that, I have been able to position myself kind of as the only copywriter in the room. And I do feel that helps me, position my services and price accordingly as well.
Mm. I just want to go back to a pricing question because you mentioned the pause clause and then they pay a fee if they want to restart the project, which is genius because we all end up in that position sometimes where a project stalls for whatever reason. How do you arrange your pricing? Like, do you have pricing milestones? How does a project work in terms of payments for you?
Sure. So I guess have different services, and for each of them I get 50% upfront. So before it kicks off, like I call it a commencement fee, and then 50% at the end. Often I'll break it up with website copy and website design, so they're treated kind of differently because it might be staggered or whatever. But yeah, normally it's 50%, 50%. If a client, they're a small client, they just say we can't do that for whatever reason, then I can do another, payment plan for them. So I'm quite flexible on that, but I definitely get a percentage upfront.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, good idea.
And what if the project stalls and they've paid you the commencement fee, but you're kind of at the end nearly, but not, and they stall the project, so the pause clause comes into effect and you're sort of 50% out of pocket. Does that happen sometimes?
I mean, to be honest, hasn't have like by the time again, I keep the projects trying to move pretty quickly and I don't deliver ever the final copy until I get that last remaining 50%. So it's like you make that 50% payment and then I'll release the copy. So a lot of the times if they're that close, they just want the copy. So
Yeah.
they haven't got it. So they've done all the work, they've paid like so usually that's enough, yeah, motivation from
Yeah.
my side.
I'd love
Mm.
to talk about technology a bit because you mentioned AI and ChatGPT. Has it made an inroad into your work, and or do you think that personality that you're bringing to copy, does that mean you're needed more than ever?
Yeah, look, I feel I don't really use AI for myself to write. But I do feel that it is a tool for architects, hence why I've kind of pushed myself because, they're busy and at least it gets something on page. But, in my master classes, I'm not, it's not like I'm teaching them how to use AI. It's more like I'm teaching them the fundamentals and foundations of copywriting and how to apply it to AI and how to use it in the right way. Because, yeah. But in terms of technology, I definitely think AI has helped me, do smaller things. Like I've just been learning about kind of AI agents that can help me like kind of glean research. So for example, it can go onto Reddit threads and find out what the pain points of architects are at the moment. So I'm using it almost as like a tool to make my research a little bit quicker and better at the moment is what I'm predominantly trying to use it for. I haven't mastered it. I'm not techie, but it's just I feel like it's interesting and yeah, I'm happy to experiment.
Mm.
Mm.
Something that our audience loves to find out about is how to fill their pipeline, how to maintain like a steady cash flow. Do you have any tips or strategies that you use, or perhaps you've gotten to that stage where you no longer need to worry about it because projects and leads are always coming to you?
Yeah, look, I mean they are coming to me now, but what I would recommend, and this is kind of what I did, is to just don't put all your eggs in one basket in terms of just doing services. I've got a tiered service offering now. So I've got, as I mentioned, the Architect's Workshop, which is all do it yourself. Then I've got a Done With You, which is a short 6-week course where I help architects who don't quite have that budget to work with me one-on-one, but we get their website messaging done in 6 weeks, and that's in a group. And then there's the one-on-one. So what I've done is I've just like kind of diversified my offerings. So yeah, if the leads aren't coming in, we're having a slow month, then I can shift, focus and start to push my master classes. And I use my newsletters to do a lot of my selling or LinkedIn.
Interesting.
So what does a typical week look like for you?
So at the moment, it shocks people, but I'm only really working 6 hours a week
Wow.
for four kids under 7. So and yeah, I've got a baby. So yeah, at the moment I just get Thursdays to work, which what has really helped me, I guess, is another thing is that a lot of my clients aren't in Australia. A lot of them are in the US on the eastern side, so I can work early in the morning. So a lot of my mornings I wake up at 4:30, 5 a.m., have meetings before the kids wake, and then yeah. Look, I'm looking forward to that chapter in my life where I can just have like a whole day to dive really deep into certain things, but at the moment it's just yeah, it's not that way.
You're lucky your baby isn't awake at 4:30. Mine used to wake at 4:45 and we would go and watch Brum, Like I don't know if anyone remembers Brum, but it's a show about a car that he would just sit there and watch Brum like 5 episodes and then we'd go back to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, but it's good to think how time zones can work in your favor.
yeah.
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 Oh, they can. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think my business would be where it is right now if it wasn't for us living in Australia and being able to tap into other time zones.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's also, I mean, we talk to a lot of copywriters, but it's really interesting the split between copywriters that work in different time zones or work. A lot of them have done overseas masterminds and then kind of scooped up clients or made connections in those masterminds, which means a lot of their leads come from the US, where there are other copywriters that work solely with Australian businesses. I always think that's really interesting how your business evolves in that way. Is that the case with you?
Yeah, so I was, but I don't think that was the reason. But yeah, I was in a US mastermind, which is I think where I got the confidence to kind of say, okay, I can work outside of Australia. I think that, and then COVID hit, so I was online and global. My architect's workshop products are all in US dollars. So yeah, like I think that, and now the UK, I mean, there's architecture's everywhere. So that's also.
Endless markets.
So yeah, because that's quite interesting that you've sort of gone deep and into a niche, but because your actual geographic market is big, there's a lot of potential clients out there for you.
Yeah, and look, the competition is definitely getting bigger. Like more, like I would say every day there's more and more architects who want to transition out of architecture and move into comms or journalism or copywriting. So in the last 5 years, like my competition I think has increased like tenfold. Like it's been big and it's good. I mean, to me that just means that they're educating our audience more. So it means that architects are understanding the value of words.
Amazing. Well,
Definitely.
you mentioned before that you're not techie, but we do have a question that we ask their favorite tech tips or the tools they'd be lost without. So do you have any?
Yeah, so one recently, so last year I set everything up on Clickup, which is like
Oh, okay.
but Clickup is my go-to now. I've got like automations and this again, like when I'm only working 6 hours a week, I don't have time to be writing emails. So I hired a project manager for 10 hours a week and she helps me manage my Clickup. But yeah, that's one tool that I could not live without. Another is ActiveCampaign for my newsletters. I've again set up my welcome sequence and all that in there. And also Figma, which
Yeah.
I use for my LinkedIn graphics as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh yeah.
Wow, this has been really interesting, Nikita. Thank you so much for coming on. Tell us where everyone can find you.
Oh, thank you for having me. Yeah, so I guess on LinkedIn, as discussed today, you can definitely find me, I'm sure. Look, yeah, you can find me on there. Otherwise, yeah, I'd love you to read my newsletter. And of course, I've got my website too. So, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So we'll put the links to all of those, LinkedIn, website, the whole thing in the show notes. So you can head there to find out where you can connect with Nikita.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been really interesting. I love it. Yeah, so good.
Yep.
So that's it for this week. We'll see everybody again next week.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye. Thanks again to our wonderful sponsors, Rounded, easy accounting and invoicing software that helps freelancers run their business with confidence.
And don't forget, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can check your welcome emails for an exclusive discount code on the annual subscription rate. You can also find it in the private Facebook Gold group or just contact us at hello@rachelslist.com.au.